video, we'll discuss HIV and AIDS education. So at the end of the lesson, as a civic education student, you should be able to define HIV and AIDS and describe factors which expose people to HIV and AIDS, as well as analyze different measures that are used to prevent the spread of HIV and AIDS. Aside from that, you should also be able to analyze the impact of HIV and AIDS at individual, community, and national level, and discuss HIV and stigmatization. So adding on to that, you should also be able to outline various ways that are used to protect the rights of HIV-infected persons, and discuss HIV and AIDS mitigation strategies in relation to treatment, care, and support. Adding on to that again, you should also be able to analyze Zambia's national HIV and AIDS draft policy. Okay. Then lastly, you should also be able to identify institutions and organizations and their roles in dealing with HIV and and AIDS. Okay, so before we know what HIV and AIDS is, we should be able to understand where this pandemic stormed out from. Okay, so we know that HIV and AIDS is a pandemic that has become and has been an issue of great global concern, right? So now, HIV and AIDS has had a very serious impact on the people's health and even development, because we know if you are pronounced HIV and if you are pronounced positive today, okay, obviously your health would be affected as well as your development. It could be at your personal level, family level, and all that. It could still be affected. So now this one has become a major or rather serious problem in the sub-Saharan Africa, and Zambia is not an exclusion when we talk about such. So now, when we go into the depth of where this disease stormed out from, you find that in the early 1980s, okay, the first case that was discovered, it was found in Uganda, okay, and it was called the slimming disease. I'm sure some of us are so familiar with this name. Back then it was called the slimming disease, okay, and then later it was discovered in Zambia by Professor Bailey, okay, who treated patients with Kaposi's sarcoma, okay, which is known to be an HIV and AIDS related disease. So I'm sure most of us know about Kaposi's sarcoma, right? Then between 1980 and 1990, HIV incidences, right, had spread quite quickly among the Zambian people or among the Zambian population. Now, according to the UNAIDS estimates, okay, the HIV prevalence rates, okay, had reached about 4.8 million people who had been newly infected in 2002. Okay, out of these, we had 3 million that were sub-Saharan Africans, and the rates of infected women were significantly higher than those of men. Now, in 2003, there was approximately 37.8 million people that were infected, okay? Then 23 million whom were sub-Saharan Africans, okay? So first of all, it came from Uganda. By then it was known as the slimming disease. Then later on we see it now coming to Zambia, okay, where we had a lot of women being infected compared to men. So now one would ask what HIV is, okay? I know that some of us think HIV and AIDS is just one thing, but then there's a difference. So HIV is an acronym, okay, that stands for human immunodeficiency virus. So the H there stands for human and the I stands for immunodeficiency. Then the V, it's the virus. So now, HIV is a virus which causes AIDS, and HIV destroys the body's immune system. Now, when the body loses its ability to fight against common diseases, it becomes weak. Okay, so once in the body HIV attacks, the immune system cells which perform various tasks, okay, that are critical to the normal functioning of the immune system, you will get to experience certain weaknesses. Okay, then when you go to the clinic, you will probably be told you have this virus in your body. Okay, so now when you're positive, okay, or maybe when one is positive, he or she has the AIDS virus, okay, in the body fluids, right? So if you are told that you're positive, it means that you have the AIDS virus, okay, in the body fluids. Now, in women, the virus is found in the vaginal fluid, and in men, it is found in the semen. Okay, so the virus is also found in blood, right? So now when the virus eventually destroys the immune system, the infected person now begins to suffer from opportunistic infections. Okay, so if one has HIV in the body, one is said to be HIV positive. So one may not actually feel sick immediately, all right? So the virus stays in the blood, and one may actually look healthy for so many years, okay, without them knowing, without them noticing that they're infected. Now, when we come to AIDS, since we're talking about the virus itself, now we're talking about the disease itself, which is AIDS. So now AIDS also is an acronym, okay? So we have the A there, which stands for acquired, the I, immuno, the D, deficiency, and the S, syndrome. So when HIV enters the body, the immune system becomes weaker and weaker, right? So as the body becomes weaker and weaker, it loses its power or its ability to fight diseases. So that is how come we now get to see people who have HIV, who have AIDS, experience, or rather have opportunistic infections, okay, that affect people with this disease, okay. They can also contract communicable diseases, okay, like tuberculosis, which is TB, right? And others also, they can also have non-communicable diseases such as pneumonia, malaria, diarrhea, and HIV-related cancers such as Kaposis, sarcoma. Okay, so now the difference between the two is that HIV is a virus. Okay, the difference between HIV and AIDS is that HIV is a virus, while AIDS is a what? Is a condition. Okay, so a person who is infected with HIV can still be healthy looking. It's not always that they can be looking so weak, so defeated, okay? Although this same virus, okay, can be in the body, the virus has, or rather it doesn't immediately attack and destroy the white blood cells, okay? So on the other hand, the immune system of a person with a high concentration of the virus will have lost its strength, and such a person now begins to suffer from different diseases. Okay, now that is why this condition is referred to as a syndrome. Okay, that is why AIDS is also referred to as a what? As a syndrome. So now at this stage, okay, AIDS has now what? Developed. When your immune system, okay, becomes too weak to fight certain diseases, okay. Now, it is important to note that after contracting the HIV, the person who is infected may not actually develop fully blown AIDS immediately. Okay, so the period from infection to development of AIDS may actually range from 1 to 20 years. Okay, in some cases. Now it may take longer than this. Okay, so now with some people, AIDS may actually kill them within a short period of time. So it depends on what? On somebody, or it depends on the kind of person. So now, having known what HIV and AIDS is, the difference between the two, we now look at the factors that expose people to this pandemic. Okay, so now we have a lot of factors that we're going to discuss. To begin with, we're going to talk about the environment itself, the environment in which we live in. So, places such as disco houses, bars, and nightclubs in which people socialize may actually provide conditions that may expose people to contract HIV. Now, this is because when one is drunk, they may lose self-control, such that chances of engaging in unprotected or maybe casual sex activities increases. Okay, so other risky environments may actually include social gatherings, border towns, and even fishing camps. Okay, then the second one, we take a look at the social part. Okay, so now lack of recreation facilities such as the sports field, recreation halls, and parks, these ones tend to tempt some people, okay, especially the youths, to engage themselves in antisocial behavior, which may include drug abuse. So now, drug abuse may actually lead people into unprotected casual sex, okay, casual sex activities. We also have peer pressure, especially among the young ones. We know peer pressure is very common among the young ones. Now, this one also may also lead youths to also get to practice what? Unsafe sex. Then the third one is economic pressures. Okay. Now, under economic pressures, we have poverty, business practices, commercial sex work. Now, when we talk about poverty, we know that poverty is one of the factors that bring economic pressures, right, on some individuals, especially in towns. So poverty may actually arise as a result of being retrenched from work or the death of a breadwinner, as a way of what? Of survival. So now, as a way of survival, some people may actually start engaging themselves in unprotected sex to do what? To raise money for basic needs. Under economic pressures as well, we can also look at the business practices aspect. So now, due to economic pressures, one may actually engage him or herself in cross-border trade. Okay, now this activity has its own pressures as well, such as paying customs duty to clear goods and paying for accommodation, which in most cases is shared. Now, such situations may actually make people vulnerable to what? To sexual abuse. Okay, then the other one under economic pressures, we have commercial sex work. Now, when we talk about commercial sex workers, these are people who use sex as a source of income. Okay, so now commercial sex work is not only a risky factor, but also a way in which people can get to contract what? HIV and AIDS. Okay, but it's not socially and morally accepted in Zambian society, in our Zambian society. So this same activity now makes people who are involved have sex with multiple partners, and at times involves unprotected sex. Then, apart from the economic pressures, we have cultural practices, and under these cultural practices, we have sexual cleansing, circumcision, and polygamous marriages. Now, when we look at cultural or maybe traditional practices, now these are aspects of life that a particular society recognizes as a what? As a way of life. So now, not all cultural practices are good, okay? With the presence of the pandemic, okay? and such practices are being discouraged nowadays. Okay, we can talk about the sexual cleansing. Now this one involves the cleansing of a surviving spouse, okay, through sexual intercourse with a selected relative of his or her dead spouse as a way of getting rid of the dead person. Okay, now, this practice poses a high risk for HIV transmission because before the act, okay, none of the partners is tested for HIV, and there's no use of what? Of condoms. Then the second one is circumcision. Now, you will find that in tradition, now this one is normally done in traditional practices, okay, and it is done in a different way compared to when you go to the hospital. Okay, now under tradition, under the Zambian tradition, okay, circumcision is considered as a way of cleaning a young man and initiating him into adult life. Now this circumcision may be a risky practice, okay, that can expose the that can expose the initiate to HIV if an sterilized razor blade or any sharp instrument once used on somebody who is HIV positive is later on used on several others who are not positive. Okay, then the other one, the last one, is polygamous marriages. Okay, now when we talk about polygamy, this one is an odd cultural practice in which men believed, or rather believed, that having more than one wife changed their status in society. So now, one would be considered, or rather was considered, rich, powerful, or prestigious if he had more than one wife. When nowadays, polygamous marriage now increases the chances of contracting HIV because this one involves multiple sexual partners. Now, in some cases, unprotected sex is practiced, while in some cases dry sex is practiced, such as it is practiced as a way of winning favor from the spouse. Okay, now dry sex may result in bruises that may allow HIV to penetrate the body if one of the partners is infected. So those are various factors that expose people to HIV. Now, what are the modes of HIV and AIDS transmission? So HIV as a virus spreads from one person to another in several ways. Okay, the most common way of transmission is through sexual intercourse with an infected partner. Now, apart from the sexual intercourse, HIV can also be transmitted through blood transfusion, sharing of unsterilized needles, razor blades, and other sharp instruments, and through mother-to-child transmission. So now, when we talk about unprotected sexual intercourse, this one means sexual intercourse without wearing a condom. Okay, since the virus is concentrated in body fluids such as semen, vaginal fluids, and the blood, the virus easily finds an entry point during sexual intercourse. Okay, especially if one of the partners has a cut. Okay, it can be a cut from dry sex. Okay, or bruises, or a sexually transmitted infection such as gonorrhea, syphilis, chancroids, or herpes. Okay, then away from unprotected sexual intercourse, we have contaminated blood. Okay, this same virus can also be passed on from one person to another through blood transfusion. Okay, injuries, or use of infected blood products and donated organs. Okay, as a result of the HIV pandemic, all donated blood is screened, okay, before it is given to somebody else who wants blood transfusion. Then, aside from that, unsterilized needles or sharp instruments can also be a mode of transmitting this virus, or rather this disease. Now, when you talk about unsterilized instruments, we're talking about needles, syringes, and other sharp instruments that are contaminated either with blood or other body fluids, okay? That can be fluids that are put, okay? Other body fluids put another person at a risk. Now, these ones can actually put another person at a risk of actually contracting HIV when they are used without being sterilized. So when we talk about sterilization, we're talking about using chemicals, okay, that are medically recommended to clean these sharp instruments, okay. Then aside from that, we are talking about mother to child transmission, okay, mother to child transmission, which is abbreviated as MTCT. Now, HIV can also be transmitted from an infected mother to her child during pregnancy, delivery, or even breastfeeding, okay. Then we have during pregnancy, okay. Now that is under the MTCT. So during pregnancy, okay, the HIV may be transmitted to the unborn baby during pregnancy through contamination of the mother's blood. Now this happens when a placenta gets bruised through injury. Now the infection rate during this time is about 21%, okay. Then the second one is during labor and delivery. So a baby may actually get infected with HIV if it comes into contact with infected blood or vaginal secretions of the mother. Now this one happens when the linings get cut or bruised during what? Delivery. Now the rate is estimated at 65% when we're talking about during labor and delivery. Then after birth, when a child is born, okay, the skin in the mouth is very delicate, such that when it sucks or on cracked nipples, it may sustain bruises and may get the virus. Now, the transmission rate during this period, okay, after birth, it is estimated at 14%. So now this one is therefore usually advisable to discuss this issue with a counselor, preferably before birth, so that a decision is made to either breastfeed or not. Now, mothers are usually advised to breastfeed exclusively for 6 months without the introduction of any hard food to avoid bruises, okay, in the mouth of the baby. So those are the modes of HIV and AIDS transmission, okay. Now let's talk about the impact of HIV and AIDS in Zambia. Now we are going to look at them at 3 levels. We have the individual level, the community level, as well as the national level. So as we all know, the fact is that HIV has had an impact on the Zambian society, okay, and it has an effect on the individual, the community, as well as the nation at large. So when we talk about at individual level, the impact of this disease is on the family, okay. Spouses have died either at the same time or within a short period of time of each other's death. Now, such a situation creates orphans who have to be taken care of by other members of the family, okay. Now, it is common knowledge that many grandparents today are actually looking after orphaned children. Now, some of these orphans are themselves infected with what? With HIV. Now, this one causes a serious economic drain and social pressures on individuals and families who have to look after the orphaned children. And other than economic and social pressures, a lot of time is spent looking after those ailing infected patients, okay, taking them to clinics and hospitals for what? For treatment, okay. So that is about the individual level. Now when we talk about the community level, you'll find that at community level, many people are experiencing the adverse effects of HIV and AIDS pandemic. You can talk about the teachers, the police officers, the medical personnel, and other professionals, as well as non-professionals. Okay, these ones have also died or are sick, and hence they are no longer productive. Okay, now a lot of time and resources is spent at funerals and attending to the sick in the community disrupt activities, okay, that would otherwise contribute to the well-being and development of communities. In rural communities, the epidemic has deprived communities, okay, of most productive labor force, leaving only the old and the very young to cultivate land. Okay, so now adequate food production and assured food security now cannot be what sustained in such communities where you only have the young and the old. Okay, those that are productive enough are the ones that are dying from this disease, or are the ones that are suffering from this pandemic. Then when we talk about the national level, you find that the government, industries, and other economic enterprises lose millions of money in man hours as a consequence of infected and sick workers, okay, who continue drawing salaries without reporting for work often. Okay, when they do report, their performance is below expectation. Okay, now these workers cannot be replaced by healthy ones, because it is illegal to dismiss somebody from work on the account of their HIV status. So during illness and funerals, the government and companies, they lose a lot of money buying medicines for treatment, coffins, and even paying funeral grants. So production is also affected when we take a look at this pandemic and how it negatively affects the nation. Okay, so because of sick workers, these ones, they cannot produce as much healthy workers, okay, as possible. So the economy of the nation cannot really prosper. So those are some of the impacts of this disease at individual, community, and national level. Okay, so this is where the first part of our lesson ends. So look out for the next part of this lesson.